to the Insomnicat Show with Nicolette and Brian. We'll get real deep with you, educating, inspiring, and solving problems with some of the most inspirational humans on the planet. Buckle up and come on the journey.
I'm excited. All right, guys, I'm Nicolette, and today Brian and I are here with Ganes Kesari, and he is the Chief Decision Scientist and Co-Founder over at Gramener. And he is going to talk to us today about decision-making and data, and we are going to learn more about what a Chief Decision Scientist does. So we are excited. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I pronounced everything right?
Yeah, you got it right. Perfect.
So, kick us off, Ganes. Tell us a little bit about your journey to Chief Decision Scientist and kind of how you got there.
Okay. I wasn't sure you started recording. I thought you just...
Oh. That's fine. I can cut it anyway. Don't worry about it. I can cut it. Go for it.
Oh, I thought you were just trying it before you go live.
We'll cut it. Don't worry.
Sorry.
We have fun. Okay. Go for it. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure, Nicolette. I have about 18 years of experience in technology, all of it solving business problems. The last 10 years have been into data. I co-founded a company called Gramener, and we help solve business challenges by presenting insights as stories. And at Gramener, like you rightly mentioned, I'm the Chief Decision Scientist. I lead the advisory and innovation teams. We advise organizations on data science strategy and help them execute. We help them create a roadmap that helps them get value from data. And we are a 10-year-old organization with offices in North America, Asia, and we have about 100 plus clients, the likes of Microsoft, World Bank, Deloitte. And we help deliver impact for our organizations, for our client organizations, by applying the right analytics for the insights and storytelling to present the insights as consumable stories. So that's what we do.
Okay. Did you always want to be a Chief Decision Scientist? Is that what you set out to do? I don't know. When you were a kid, did you say that? Was there something that kind of drew you to that?
Isn't that a cool title?
I like it. I mean,
I do. I love it. I just want to keep saying it. That's what it is.
Yeah, so I definitely did not set out to become a Chief Decision Scientist, but the perk of being in the data world is there's no paucity of buzzwords. And as such, you have data scientist, you have AI, big data, no paucity of buzzwords. And Chief Decision Scientist is kind of an up-and-coming title. And we thought it perfectly aligns with the path that we have taken and how we want to help organizations. So just to break down that and explain what it actually, the role means. So in simple terms, my role is to ensure that our clients make best decisions using their data. As simple as that. It's not about building fancy AI models. It's not about executing projects. Just make decisions from data, which impacts the business.
So you mentioned
that's a big job, though.
That is a big job.
That's a big job. That's a lot of responsibility on you.
Especially because a lot of companies sometimes, we talk about this a lot. Like a lot of times companies, they see the data and they think that's it, right? And now you're combining storytelling with data. Now, how is that sort of changing the game up a little bit for companies?
This is very right. So for arriving at business decisions, there are several components. And when you want to move from data to decisions, you first have to collect the right data, because data is available everywhere and you have tons of data of different kinds. You have to find out the right kind of data that will help you. And
right. You don't want to measure, you want to be recording irrelevant data to your decisions, right?
Right.
Correct. Yeah. Second step is to analyze and find out the insights from data. And the third one is converting those insights. And the big challenge in the industry is the last mile disconnect, where you have good insights, strong insights, but people are not able to use them. So that's where storytelling, visual storytelling particularly comes in handy. So when you have these three and you connect it back to the business problem, you start with a business need, then you're able to move the decision making within an organization.
So recently on LinkedIn, you were kind of talking about decision making of the future, and I really liked this post, so I wanted to bring it up, and I think now is a good time. And I want to talk about those futuristic trends that you were talking about, and how we would make decisions in the future, and also how are we making decisions now? So how is that different?
Yeah, it's a great question and right timing. I talked about the three steps, right? Gathering the data and analysis and storytelling. That's almost how we do it today. We start with the business problems. Let's take an example, right? So we're trying to find out why customers are leaving us, the business. So that's the business problem, customer churn. So we have to collect the data to find out what is driving the churn. Oops, sorry, there's an alarm going off at home. Okay, yeah, let's start off again. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a customer, sorry,
Okay.
goof ups. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's say a business is trying to find out why customers churn. Why do they leave them? So first, they need to understand more about the customers, and you need to collect data for that. What did they buy? And how often have they bought? What is the value of the purchases made? All kinds of transaction and demographics data. And then second, you try and find out what could be some precursors to them leaving. Was there a decline in purchase behavior? Was the average monthly spend falling? There could be a lot of patterns in that. So that's what you need to find out to say, what are those signals which could indicate that a customer might leave? That's one thing in terms of trying to find out who will leave. The other perspective is finding out why they leave, right? So where they're not happy with the customer service. You analyze in case they've raised some issues, customer service issues, find out what happened for bulk of the customers who left. So that's the second part, analysis and finding out why they left and what could be some signals. The third one is telling the product managers, for instance, or the customer relationship managers that these are the customers who have left for this reason. And now, here you go and look at your existing customer base to see, do any of the other customers exhibit similar early stage behaviors, in which case they might leave the next month. So that way you present it in a way that they can understand and act upon. So that's where the third part of storytelling comes in. When they act and they make some decisions, it potentially solves their business problem. So that's how this plays out today. So now here comes the interesting part, right? How would it evolve in the future? So this I've in my newsletter recent post, I'm looking at, say, 10 years from now. And as Bill Gates said, we tend to overestimate what we might do in the next 1 year, but we underestimate what we could do in the next 10 years. It's a very powerful statement. I strongly believe in that. So for this crystal ball gazing, what I've done is I've taken a slightly ambitious view that things could fundamentally change. We're not talking about linear increments. So that way, each of these three steps, how could they evolve? So this is where some very crazy and interesting trends come into play. First one, when you talk about gathering data today, you have to collect it from a variety of sources. You pull it to a central warehouse, and then you get for a subsets of that, and then you get it onto your laptop, and then you look at it. Right? So in the future, I think the human brain interface, the computer brain interface. So if you've heard of Elon Musk's company, Neuralink, so they have been trying this out on pig. They've set up some chips which are put into the brains, and they're able to read the signals of it. And their roadmap is in a couple of years. They say that they might be able to do something like this on humans. So imagine plugging a chip on top of the head, and then it starts reading the signals, and you start reading what we are thinking. Potentially has some benefits as well, right? So that's one trend which, say, 10 years from now, we might have non-invasive procedures. We might not have to really put it inside. You might have a wearable, who knows, right? So just like you strap on a watch, if you're able to put on a headband and it's able to read the brain signals, the brain waves, like you have some of the early meters that are able to read the signals. So something similar to that, if you have the computer and brain interface. With this, what could happen is you don't have to
I don't know
look
if too many people would want to wear like a heat sink on their head, you know. Sorry.
Yeah. So with that, you would be able to directly interface with data and signals. You don't need an external device. So imagine connecting to your data. You don't even have to look at your laptop. You will be able to directly tap into it. Imagine a two-way interface.
Okay. So like, what about a wearable, to your point, but it's one of those like flexible electronic patches, right? And so you could stick that on your head, Brian. I mean, you've got no hair, so it's kind of perfect for you, Brian. You just put that on your brain and you get it. What do you think? Can we do that? Maybe. All right.
Yeah, maybe. Yes.
All right. I'm in.
I think we're all guessing here, right?
Yeah.
So that's possible. And if you add to that, I'm talking about a two-way exchange, right? Not just read your signals, but also be able to transfer from the external world and process directly. So, so that way, that is a little ambitious, but that could simplify the data exchange without the need for external devices. So you're at will, you will be able to find out what happened to your customers yesterday. Just pull that data, and immediately you're able to process it. So that's one trend for the first part of data gathering and connection and reading that. The second one is today we're talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence to identify insights. There's an emerging trend, and there's a professor at MIT. He calls it collective intelligence, augmented collective intelligence. So it's not just the machines and machine computing, but you add human computing into the mix. You have millions of people, and you tap into the collective human processing part, and you combine it with the machine's part. So that's what is called as collective intelligence. If you're able to bring both together, then and you're able to apply it on all of the data that we have, that can actually transform the kind of computations we could do. This again is futuristic. How will it coexist? How will you combine and act upon it? I'm guessing in 10 years we would have figured out some of those things. And with this additional augmented collective intelligence capability, you'll be able to process data at much faster speeds. You'll be able to get to deeper insights. And when you have human plus the machine coming together, you will be able to take care of those nuances like the domain knowledge, business aspects. Today, it's a difficulty because neural networks don't understand that. So they fail terribly when you have to understand even things like common sense and a lot of other subtle aspects, right? So when you bring both together, it could transform what is possible. And so that's a second aspect. So the third one is storytelling recommendations. Here again, there's one other interesting thing. So today, when you talk about visual storytelling, when you're scanning it using your eyes, you're looking at something instead of looking at a table of numbers. Looking at a picture is much faster because we process visually. So that's the entire reason for doing visualizations, data storytelling. So now we are talking about a future where if the communication and processing is happening directly in the brain. So would visuals still be the medium of choice? Because if it is going to be neural impulses, maybe pictures are not going to be that useful. So you might have to communicate with the brain using, say, neural impulses. So if you're able to encode it and say that, okay, this is the summary from the customer churn example. These are the customers who have churned, and pass that impulse to the brain, and you get it just like that, right? Instead of looking at a picture and trying to draw the inferences. So that could be rapid, just that it is a completely new mode of communication. So that way, these three things coming together, you have the direct brain-computer interface, and then you have processing with the augmented collective intelligence. And then once you have the insight, you storytell using direct, say, neural impulses or whatever is the best mode of communication directly with the brain, inside the brain.
So it's like a new language.
Exactly, yeah, like a new language.
Yeah, it's almost like having a second brain, right? That's giving you more information, that's adding additional information in there for you.
Right. Yeah. So that's pretty cool, and the possibilities are great. And by the way, all of this is a little futuristic. I'm not a researcher in this area. I've been reading up about it and trying to kind of put different things together. But I'm very excited about it because this could change the way we make decisions. This could change everything for organizations. So, yeah.
So how is this a little different from data? So data science, are there any misconceptions about kind of what you do and what a data scientist does? Like, do you think people kind of don't really understand?
Yeah. So if we come back to today, right? We talked about a futuristic state. If we come back to today, what are some misconceptions about data science? I think if we start with even the terminology, what does data science even mean?
Mm-hmm.
There are different interpretations of it. So there are some people who talk about data science as just reporting or enhanced reporting. Like we have had the business intelligence reports. Is it BI or is it something slightly different from that? Or is it just machine learning? Or is it only AI, the really advanced analytics? The way I look at it, and the way many practitioners I see in the industry, they agree with this, is it's kind of a continuum. When you have data, you will still need business intelligence and simple reporting, right? KPIs, and looking at certain past summaries, simple summaries of this is what happened yesterday, this is the revenue we made, and so on. So simple summaries, descriptive summaries are still going to be valuable. So that's BI or reporting. Anything which falls into slightly deeper analysis, diagnostics, finding out why my revenue fell in the last week, like diagnostics, diagnostic analytics, that goes a little deeper than reporting. And then forward-looking ones, what will be the revenue tomorrow? Predictive analytics, that also gets into the data science area. So when you go into diagnostic and predictive analytics, you're getting into deeper analysis. That's where you need statistics. And in addition to statistics, you need machine learning and AI and other higher forms of analytics. So that way, that is really what data science is all about. So that's, to answer your question, that's a misconception in terms of what really even data science means. Another thing I see within the industry is that people, when you say data science, they think about all of these algorithms and neural networks and all of that, but they miss the objective. Why are we doing all of this? It is for solving a simple business problem. And if that problem can be solved using simple reporting, then why not? Why should you even go after AI? Right. So starting with the end in mind and that business objective, and justifying the investments put into data with whatever is the most efficient way to get to that decision. That is something I see a lot of people missing in the industry.
Do you think it's because like data, a few years ago, right? Data science became like this huge buzzword, and everyone, was like data science, and a lot of, I think a lot of companies, they would go, okay, I'm going to collect all this data, right? But they don't really understand, or they weren't making judgment calls that made sense. They were just purely basing it on data. Do you see a lot of that happening still?
Even today, they base a lot of it on data, and to understand the question and put it in the right perspective, you're saying they're not looking at the needs of the users.
Right, the needs of the users or the business or whatever the case is. They're just basically making their decision straight on the data.
Yeah, right. So I often say that the best place to start data analytics is not with either data or with analytics. It has to start with the business. So that today, that's a big gap even today in the industry, because a lot of people who come from the machine learning and the statistics or even the other technology backgrounds, they don't spend enough time understanding the business challenges or business needs. Right. So there's a lot of education happening, and leaders and organizations are spending time on making the teams data literate and also business literate. So both of these are need of the hour.
So I have a fun question. And so how can you take what you do, right? Because you help solve business challenges and you are a chief decision scientist. How do you take that same thinking and apply it to personal problems and solving, personal challenges? Is that possible? Is there some sort of formula that we should know about? Is there a way to apply that to your personal life?
Right. Great question. So I obsessively collect data, not just at work, but about myself. And my personal space. So I'll give you an example. So for the last 3 years, I've been time logging my my day at every 15-minute interval. So every 15 minutes, I have 12 categories. What activity am I doing? Am I doing some part of work? Am I doing reading? Or I have some categories. So I've been noting it down. And so at 15-minute intervals, so I have rich data, and I use this for individual planning. I do a monthly summary in terms of where has my time gone.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is dedication.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Because that's a manual process, right? I mean, do you have any tech help from, or is that solely manual, pen and paper or typing?
Right. I use spreadsheets and do it manually. I tried some of these solutions where, like, for instance, you have some apps to do it. But again, ultimately, I saw that I wanted this in a certain way, tracked in a certain way. The number of categories, the granularity, and how I'm going to roll it up, all of it I wanted in a certain way. So I chose to do it manually on spreadsheet. So I enter it, and then I have built my own templates in terms of this is the monthly summary. So I, on an average, this month I rose at this time and I slept at this time, and I've spent say roughly an hour every day on, say, exercises and yoga. So how it has helped me is when I look at this reflection at the end of the month, I try and see I have some goals. I want to read a certain amount of time every day, and I want to be consistent with yoga, and I want to spend quality time with my family, with my kids. So I've been tracking it, and I color coded to see that which months am I going down on some of those activities. So for example, I saw that reading, it was suffering for some months. I started putting it into the calendar. I said, no matter what, I'm going to read at this particular time. And likewise for yoga. So I wanted to do a certain amount of duration, like roughly about, last year I was spending about 45 minutes every day. I wanted to increase that. So the last 6 months, and probably partly thanks to the pandemic as well, about 1 hour, 15 minutes I spend every day on yoga and exercises. So that way, tracking and being conscious about it and looking at it periodically has helped. And it can be simple. Here, we are not talking about fancy analysis. So again, data collection, simple analysis to find how is it going, and is it trending up, trending down. And there are some activities I want to cut down on. So if I'm spending a lot more time on it, I mark it in red, say, no, this has to keep coming down. So that way, so I build it into the schedule, and then I've been trying to build habits around that in terms of the desirable behaviors. So rising early, I changed recently. So that way, implementing actions, implementing some of these in terms of how can I change it, influence it. So the entire data-driven behavior.
A data-driven life. That's really cool. You need to write a book now, I'm thinking. Yes. That is awesome. I mean, once you have all that data, then you can do so much with it. And I'm sure there are other ways you could even collect data on yourself, if you had different goals in mind, or maybe they were health goals, right? I mean, people have all those fitness trackers, right? But different types of health goals, maybe it's how long it took you, for the elderly, I'm thinking of even, how long it took you to get out of bed, or how long, and see if, certain things
how
are
long
Brian
helping. Wasted on social media this month.
Wow. Your phone does that for you. It tells me how much I'm on the screen all the time. And then I look at it and I go, I don't want to see it.
Ignore it. Yeah, I'm just like, no.
Shut that off.
So that's actually useful. I think that's a good point you make. You can apply this to different aspects of your life, and for all kinds of people, right? Social media is one good example. You have those summaries, weekly summaries, and you can set, when you are conscious that you're spending a lot more time on social media, you can set those limits. Ultimately, it's up to you to whether lock it or just snooze that, but it can help you track and change behavior.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So here's my last question. I'm just so blown away by the fact that you get that much data on yourself. I'm jealous, actually. So I'm going to shift back to teams for a second. When we are, so data collection, analyze the data, and then we talk about the, storytelling aspect and the, and getting the insights. Now, are there mistakes that teams are making, and how are there common mistakes that teams are making when it comes to this data collection, and how can they maybe fix them?
So each of these three stages we have spoken about it, that can be a reference point. There are challenges at all the three stages. First thing is data collection from a business, in a business context, right? Without right data, analytics or anything else is not possible. So organizations need to get the data in place, and it has to be credible. One challenge I've seen with enterprises is that they have data and they want to invest and build some solutions. So early stage, when we are trying to get feelers for what will be useful for them, and as part of advisory, I try to draw up a roadmap for them on what all should be the initiatives in the short term, mid-term, long term. So for that, when I'm trying to work it out, we run some workshops and try to find out what will be most valuable for them. So there, I also try to get feelers for if an insight is presented to you with your own data, would you act on it, or would you view it with suspicion, particularly if it goes against what you recommend, what you think intuitively? Many organizations that are early in the journey, I've heard the CEOs say that, yeah, I would look at it, but I may not act on it because I know that the data is not collected properly, or there are challenges the way our team collects it because it's manual. So,
and what's the point of collecting it? Why even bother?
Yeah. So many of these are done because that's the way it is done in the industry, and you have systems and you have to collect it. But until it is cleaned up and credibility of that effort increases, no one is going to use it. And the question you're asking is right. And when leaders particularly ask this question themselves, that why am I spending so much on collecting data if I'm not going to trust that? So until you get to that point of realization that, yes, I need to do something about it, instead of putting, say, $1 million into analytics, should I first get my data cleaned up first and get it to some better state, minimum usable state? So that way, that is a call you need to take. That's one area where people make mistakes. Organizations miss out on that. The other extreme, the challenge I've seen is that there are some companies, and this has been documented in some case studies by McKinsey as well. So organizations spend 6 months or 1 year just collecting data. They say that we will want to get all of the data possible in the best possible shape. Only then we will start using the data for analysis. That also is a waste of effort, because you don't want to get it to the complete state, because until you start analyzing and using it, you will not know what else to collect. There's no ideal end state. So you have to get it to a minimum level that it is credible enough to act upon. And at that stage, just like a minimum viable product, you use that data and start building your analytics solution, start finding some insights and act upon it. So both of this can go hand in hand. So that's how you need to balance it. So you need to know when to start analytics and how much of data quality you need to ensure first. And then when we already talked about all of this being in service of a larger business purpose. So that is taken care of. The other thing is storytelling and visualization. Briefly touched upon it. That is something which is often overlooked. Organizations spend a lot of time on model building, but they don't spend even like say 10% or 5% time needed to convert those statistical summaries into consumable pictures. So that's where the last mile disconnect comes in. So you need to have skills in the team for visualization of data, for storytelling. So that's you need to have 5 skills in a team. I've written some articles and posts on this. So you need to have these mix of skills which combines all of these aspects: business, data engineering, model building, visualization, and even importantly, the last thing is change management. So after you have all of these things done, there's no guarantee that users will use a great solution. There are several solutions in the industry. It's heartbreaking to see that they've put in a lot of effort. Teams have done great work and the insights are just fabulous, but no one uses it because there's a change management involved. Users are used to acting in a certain way, either based on gut feel or using some antiquated systems. So you need to change the process in which they make their decisions, and you'll have to rewire the business processes with data. Unless you do that, and it has to be driven to some extent by leadership, that this is a new way that our organization will work, and this is the benefit we will get out of it. So all of that needs some change in culture as well. So It's actually a package. You need to get all of these things right. Only then you will get business value from data.
Do you think sometimes, and I know this is a little sort of one step away, but do you think sometimes some of those people leading those companies, the reason why they're like, oh, I'm not going to act on that data yet is because they're afraid of that change that needs to happen?
At the leaders level,
well, I guess at any level, right? At any level, do you believe like a lot of people, they don't want to act on data, because they're afraid of change?
Yeah. I've seen this resistance more at the middle level and the junior level. When it comes to the CEO or the top leadership, it's now a matter of survival. If they don't use the data, their competition is using. So I think leaders, compared to 10 years back now, all of them are aware of it, that this is the way. And it's no longer a differentiator, it is needed for survival. Whereas at the next level, there are cases where people have been acting in a certain way. I've seen in my consulting engagement that there are some managers who push back saying that, no, I don't want it, because some people fear that they will get exposed when data comes in. So that exists in pockets at certain levels. But I think thanks to all of the hype around data, AI, which we spoke about earlier, there's some bit of movement and change which has happened in organizations.
Brian, did you want to ask anything else?
No, I think we
Data is really it's your thing. So
no, I think we covered. I think we covered a lot, especially like all the aspects you laid out of the process. I didn't think about that in some of the stuff with the future of data.
I'm just really excited that I can apply this to my life. I mean, that's really was my key takeaway today. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Glad to hear that, Nicolette. Yeah. So maybe, do you want to talk about any examples of using data, your experiences with data?
Our experiences.
All right. Well, we use data a lot. I mean, it depends on what it is, right? I mean, it's interesting because depending on, we have multiple aspects of our business. Some are, there's media aspects of our company, meaning like we own websites and we have users and things like that. So we use a lot of data and stuff to do like, what do users want to engage with, and we look at the types of content they engage with, and it helps us create better content, right? So we do a lot of things like that. And same thing for our podcast. We look at, hey, what are the most viewed sort of podcasts and how much engagement do they have? Do we need to make more episodes like this? Why are these episodes successful versus other episodes? So we use data a lot like that in our business.
Content analytics and content marketing, I think data is very useful there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, there's even when we look at, Brian, remember you used to talk about, nurturing those folks who come to your company, kind of grading them, right? And giving them a score. How important are they?
Yeah.
There's a lot of data you did with that as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do a lot of analysis on sort of like, how the intent, right, of a user. So what is their intent? What is their sort of, I don't want to say their value, but what is their intent in what they're doing? And are they more likely to interact with certain things versus other things? That way you sort of go, okay, I'm not really, like, say for instance, if we're talking about newsletters or something, we have subscribers. There are certain types of newsletters certain subscribers always interact with, some never interact with the type of newsletter. It's not worth sending, out stuff or bothering even your users with too much stuff if they're never going to interact with it. So we look at data a lot like that in terms of our users.
Okay. I think that's a great use case too. What resonates with the customers and who's likely to engage with it. And
right.
You can find out those people and then create content which resonates more with them.
Right.
Exactly. And then just, and not annoy the other users. Do you know what I mean? With stuff that's irrelevant to them.
Right.
So
yeah. I think that the content creation and today has become a lot more scientific compared to earlier radios or television shows. They just used to have that the TRP or whatever the rating points, right? It's a very broad indicator. It's going up, going down, but now we have second by second at what a minute or second have they stopped watching your YouTube video.
Right.
So it's very useful signal if you can only tap into all of that and find out what is really resonating and then improve our content based on that.
Absolutely.
Well, can you do us a favor and tell everybody where they can learn more about you and the company and everything that you guys have going on? And I think everybody should follow you on your social channel, because it's very I really love connecting with you on LinkedIn because I enjoy your posts.
Thank you, Nicolette. So kind. I am active on LinkedIn. I'll share the URL. G Kesari is my username. So I'm active on LinkedIn. I post multiple times a week. I respond to individual direct messages as well. So LinkedIn and Twitter, I'm fairly active. And I also have a newsletter. The post we talked about was from the recent newsletter. I have it on Substack. So this is a monthly, twice newsletter. Please check it out and register. And company Gramener, Gramener.com, you'll find a lot of information about it on the website. So a lot of interesting stories around data. So insights stories, a lot of public examples. And we've used it in conservation of animals as well, like AI for good, conservation of penguins and all of that. So all of that is public on our website. So I'm sure people would love it when they check it out.
We'll definitely provide the links in the description.
Yes, we will.
Check out all your socials and go to your company website.
So, yeah,
Thank you so much for joining us. We so appreciate it.
Thank you, Nicolette. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for the invitation. It was a pleasure talking to you. It was a fun conversation.
Thank you.